paragraph in class. You get 4 points for each paragraph. That does not sound like a lot of points, but 5 paragraphs for your rough draft, you take that 5 times 4, it ends up being a 20-point, basically classwork assignment. So it's something that does build up. The hope would be by us going through the rough draft and all that stuff together, when you get the final copy, we got a pretty good idea how well it's going to work, and most of those little details are kind of fixed up at that point so that you're able to maximize the grade. So on the sheet that you picked up for today, you have this Oedipus Rex analysis essay. You have your choice about which prompt it is that you want to do. You can do prompt number 1, that says foreshadowing is an important component in the play. Explain how Sophocles uses foreshadowing to hint at Oedipus's ultimate downfall. So you would be locating at least 3 examples of foreshadowing from the play to explain how that hints towards his ultimate demise. So everything that you would do would be about foreshadowing. If you don't want to do foreshadowing, you could do number 2, figurative language. Certainly you have a figurative language packet. We've been doing a lot of stuff with that, where you would explain how figurative language emphasizes the struggles within Thebes. That could be Oedipus's struggles himself, or that could be other things just like the plague in general that are going on in Thebes. And you would come up with examples of that of figurative language in the play. When we say figurative language, means simile, metaphor, personification, it doesn't matter to me which one of those you end up using. You could have an example of each. You could end up going all simile, 2 similes, 1 example of personification. I really don't care about it. So first decision you're going to have to make is which of these 2, foreshadowing or figurative language, do you want to choose? Makes no difference to me. It doesn't affect your grade. If Maddie thinks that the foreshadowing one sounds easier, Nate decides that figurative language sounds easier, you're not hurting your grade by taking the easy one out and get a better grade by choosing the other. They're both absolutely the same. So you have a choice that you have to make. Couple things to understand. What I've done with your 2 prompts, and take a pencil or a pen, not the part that's in bold, not where it says number 1 in bold, but the lines underneath. Foreshadowing emphasizes Oedipus's inevitable downfall throughout the play. Circle, highlight, underline that sentence. And do the same thing with number 2. Figurative language emphasizes the struggles within Thebes. So the 2 sentences that have emphasize as the verb, highlight each one of those. On your paper, not like on the computer or anything like that. The sentence that starts off with foreshadowing and goes through play. If you choose prompt number 1, this is your thesis statement. So Nate, you decided to do prompt number 1. What's your thesis?
Inevitable downfall throughout the play.
Logan decides to do the same thing. What's his thesis? The exact same thing. You're not in trouble for copying one another. I'm giving you the thesis statement. So if you do number 1, your thesis statement, right by the end of your introduction, when it says write the thesis, I would be expecting that you write foreshadowing emphasizes Oedipus's inevitable downfall throughout the play. If you do prompt number 2, your thesis is going to be figurative language emphasizes the struggles within Thebes. Please understand you are not writing 2 essays. Don't write 2 essays, 2 thesis statements. You pick which one you want. But when it says what's your thesis statement, I'm expecting you're going to take it word for word from this prompt. Does that make sense? Understand it. It's a freebie. Some folks will go, Mr. Kane, can I reword the thesis? I don't want you to do it yet. As we get into some future essay assignments, sure, maybe we'll personalize it a little bit. Please don't take it as an insult that I don't think you're capable of it. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with this one. How many essays are you doing? 1. So you're only going to have 1 thesis statement. Jack, please take your buds out. You're only doing 1 thesis statement. Don't try to complicate the matter and end up doing 2. I don't know if your 9th grade teacher used this term or not last year. So this one, I'm sure thesis we're familiar with. This one we might not be quite as familiar with, or we might be. second sentence. This is evident in the following examples, and then there's blanks for it. And the same thing down here. This is evident in the following examples, and then we have those blanks. This is going to be what's called your focus statement. Did you use the term focus statement last year? Sort of. You probably, like in 11th grade, it should be pretty consistent with the way that we use it. What thesis statement is your argument? Foreshadowing emphasizes that Oedipus has a downfall. Figurative language emphasizes that there are struggles within Thebes. The focus statement is what tells us these are going to be the examples that I'm going to use. The last two sentences of your introduction are going to be your thesis and your focus. Now, again, I'm not saying that Nate and Logan both are going to do number one, but we're pretending they are. They will have the same thesis statement. Will they have most likely the same focus statement? Probably not. It'll be written very much the same, but what's going to most likely be different? Nate's going to have his 3 examples, you'll have yours. There might be some carryover, but the chances of all 3 being the same are probably pretty slim. So in the blanks here, you would be coming up with what your 3 examples would be. Whatever your first example is going to be, that's going to be a body paragraph. Whatever your second example is going to be will be a body paragraph. And whatever your third example would be would end up being a body paragraph. So you'd have to come up with 3 examples of foreshadowing or 3 examples of figurative language to emphasize the conflict that we're taking a look at. Here's the one thing that I'm not trying to make your life miserable, but does kind of complicate it a little bit. Anyone have an idea which prompt you want to use?
Yes.
What do you think? Not that you're held to it. You're thinking foreshadowing? Any examples coming to mind without looking at the play?
Remember the Tiresias said something about being blind.
Okay. Like you're blind to your. Do you remember what scene that is?
That was like 1, right?
That's scene 1. Within the play, we have the prologue, which is when we find out, what our big problem is. In scene 1 is when Tiresias shows up. Other stuff happens, but Tiresias is scene 1. Scene 2, big conversation with whom? A lot of yelling back and forth. Creon. Creon's in scene 2, and then we also have Jocasta shows up. Scene 3. Anyone remember big element introduced in scene 3 for character or anything? From Corinth. This is when he finds out what's going on. Who's the big conversation with in scene 4? Had the messenger, now I need to talk to the shepherd. And then our last part is the Exodus, and this is when we go, ooh, he's blind. That's unfortunate. Okay, so not that that's going to fill in everything, but Brendan, you said Tiresias, so you'd be writing from scene number 1. Your first example, whatever you use for the first example, I want it coming from either the prologue or I want it coming from scene 1. So if you go with Tiresias, which would be perfectly fine, you can't use anything else from scene 1 or take something from the prologue. Basically what I don't want happening is someone like Tyler writing an essay that ends up being about prologue in scene 1 and not the whole play. You can't cover everything, but we can at least spread out the evidence a little bit. So your first example would be prologue or scene 1. For your second example, you could pull from scene 2 or 3. For your final example, you could pull then from scene 4 or the Exodus. And what I'm writing up here would also apply down there. Does that make sense? I know you don't know what your examples are yet. I mean, specifically what they would all be. But the hope is you at least start to have at least an idea. All right? You go with Tiresias. Which body paragraph is that going to be?
First one.
Why? You're right. your examples are going to be going in chronological order. So you're not going to write about the Exodus, the prologue, and then scene 3. It would be developing in the order that they would go in the play. All right. So if you do the first one or you do the second one, examples would be coming from the same area. You can't only write about scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. If you go with Tiresias, I don't want your focus statement to be, this is evident in the following examples. Scene 1, scene 3, Exodus. What could he put instead of scene 1? This is evident in the following examples. Oedipus's conversation with Tiresias, Tiresias' warning, but give some kind of context clue as to what's going on. Don't just simply put a scene number. All right. You don't have to give me line numbers. You're not giving me quotes yet. But at least you know what would we essentially be taking a look at. Any questions? We're good. We're good. We're good. If we're not good, we're being quiet about it. Okay. In Google Classroom, then still, oops. What you see, and yours is going to look a little bit different. Everyone have this thing here that says Oedipus Rex Essay Brainstorm. Okay. This is your homework assignment. To complete this, you will need your packet with you. So what happens, I don't want you to go into it yet, because we know, as we found out earlier, you can't start a Google form and then like pause it and come back to it later. It doesn't save everything. But you would open up the Oedipus Rex Brainstorm. First thing, and it'll collect your email address right away, so I know you've turned it in. You don't have to worry about typing in your name. Select the prompt that you wish to answer. So there's prompt number 1, there's prompt number 2. You'd pick which one you want. Brendan, you said you want to do the first one. So he would just simply go foreshadowing. All right, now I know what essay you want. Next. Type your thesis statement. Where are you getting your thesis statement from? From the prompt itself. So, Brendan, what's my thesis statement?
Foreshadowing emphasizes Oedipus' inevitable downfall throughout the play.
If I can spell Oedipus is right. Don't go that sentence from the paper you gave me. Write the sentence, okay, just so you kind of get used to it. So you put in the sentence, there you go. Next. Now, what is an example of foreshadowing or figurative language that you will use for your first example? Please note this example must come from the prologue or scene 1. You said Oedipus's, again, if I can spell, conversation with Tiresias. Rewrite the lines from the play that you want to use for this first example and put in the line numbers. This is the tricky part. What does Brendan now have to do? Go find the lines. So he's going to go quote, type in stuff, quote, and then he's going to put the line numbers down. I understand that some of the line numbers might be difficult to read because of the margins. Take a guess at this point for it. You know, roughly where is it based on the other line numbers that you can see. I have the textbook. Cesare will back this up, that it has all the line numbers, that if we ever get confused, we know exactly where it is, since she was looking at it on Friday. So I would do something like lines 111 through 113. I'm simply making this up. I would go next. Then you're going to do the same thing. What are you doing for scenes 2, scenes 3? I'm just putting random answers, obviously. Please don't do this. It's a really good example that I have. The last thing it asks is, what is your focus statement? I saved this for the end so that you could know what your examples are. Then you would be able to put them in. So, you know, this is evident in the following scenes, and then I would put in what those examples were that I included. Here is the main thing to understand. Before you hit submit, please, please, please do this. Send me a copy of my responses. What that does, whatever you type in the form, it will send to your email, to your Gmail. Now, what do you have a copy of? Your examples, your thesis statement. So when it goes to typing it, it should be much, much easier. You still get credit if you don't send me a copy of my responses, but you just lost the copy of your responses. So you would submit it, it would say thank you, I'd be able to mark it down as points. I can look through it then. So if I see some kind of issue with, like, Justice's first example, I don't think this is the best example that you'd want to use. Why don't you try something else? You know it before you get too far within the essay. So you get the 10 points for completing it. It also gives me a way of making sure it's okay. My guess is the figurative language would be the one that this is most important for, so that if Alex submits something as being figurative language, I can make sure there is a simile, a metaphor, personification, whatever the case may be. But the big thing is, please make sure you send me a copy of for yourself, you send a copy of your responses so that it can work. I would like you to do this by this time tomorrow. So tonight, homework assignment, copy your thesis statements, look up your examples. If you have a second period study hall, you want to pass to the library, you can do it then. Theoretically, you could do it over your phone, but I think typing in quotes with your thumbs can be a little bit difficult. But for tonight, I want to know then, what is your thesis, what's your focus, what are your examples. I'm not doing a homework check at 10 p.m. tonight. So it's not that you have to worry about, I won't get time to do this until 10:30. I'm not going to check them in, honestly, till after class tomorrow, but I want to make sure that we have them in just so I can look through it and make sure that, yes, this looks okay. And you are getting points for it. So to complete that assignment, make sure that you would be in Google Classroom. You would do that brainstorm right then and there. Any questions with that one? Everyone have then an Oedipus essay, Oedipus Rex essay underneath it. Yours should look a little bit different. Yours should say Oedipus Rex template, but I believe it has your name attached to it. Yeah, you can close that tab and it should be okay. Do you still have Google Classroom open?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to the second assignment. It says Oedipus Rex template, but click on the one that has your name. Yours might say open. Tommy, I'll look over your shoulder and see what.
See, and I say turnitin.com. First making your essay.
All right, if you hit, I don't know why I did this. If you hit, so if you have Turnitin, I'm going to steal yours. If you hit the open button by Turnitin, it should take you to this page where you still see a link for Turnitin, but then you see a thing that says your work underneath it. Hit the open button. And then at that point, there'll be a thing that'll have your name, Oedipus Rex template. Should be there. Got it. You're in there. You got it. Go back. That thing, don't know why. So you're gonna hit the back button.
Well, let me just fix it.
Okay, crazy screen. Open. Down there. Now you got it. You got it. Amy, you got it. Mia, you're doing it good. You guys all good. Justice, did yours show up?
I love that. Which
Down here. So you got to hit open. And then right there. That's your name. Yep, open. Adrian, you're good. Carrie, you're in. Julia, you're in. Okay. So what you have now, this is where you're going to be typing your rough draft tomorrow. So with this document, yours is automatically shared with me. I now have access to it. So as you type stuff, I'll see what it is. By the end of class tomorrow, you are going to have your introduction complete. Some things you want to start thinking about is if you are doing foreshadowing. Anyone? How many people know they're going to do foreshadowing? How many people know you're doing figurative language?
Part of the clubs.
Okay. And then we got some folks who are undecided. Doesn't matter which one you go. Both of them, you're certainly dealing with some problems. For your introduction, here are the, and I don't want you to highlight, but I'm just kind of showing you the parts that you're going to be looking at. For your introduction, you're going to be doing an attention grabber. Your attention grabber is going to be 2 to 3 sentences, minimum would be 2. You're going to do a transition sentence. We'll explain what this means. Your transition sentence is just going to be 1 sentence long. That's all you're doing. Your background, you're going to give 2 sentences of background, basically summarizing what's happening in the play. That's going to be 2 sentences. Your thesis statement, what did you already do on tonight's homework assignment? You already wrote your thesis. So you could copy and paste your thesis statement in from the homework assignment you do tonight, and then the same thing with your focus statement. So everyone is going to be including these parts within your introduction. What do you notice about some of them? Specifically, attention grabber, transition, background sentences. Mentions. Okay. Depending on what I'm doing, I have to have certain information. For all of these, you need to also write a specific type of sentence. So your attention grabber is going to have a complex sentence and a compound sentence. Your transition sentence will be a simple sentence. Your background sentence will have a complex and a compound statement. You get credit for your essay. That grade is independent from the sentences. You're also going to get, when it's all said and done, a quiz grade on your simple, your compound, your complex. So Jack writes his introduction. He doesn't do a complex. He doesn't do a compound. He doesn't do a simple. You could still get credit for the paragraph, but if you don't have those sentences correct, you would lose points when it comes to the quiz grade that you're going to get for writing those sentences. If Maddie does not have a complex sentence as her first sentence, what am I going to do when I'm looking over her paragraph? Highlight it and go, this isn't a complex sentence. Talk to me if you need to know how to write one. Pardon? No, I'm not. Attention grabber. If you're looking at foreshadowing, what's foreshadowing all about? By definition, what's foreshadowing?
Shadowing the future.
You're giving, I'm thinking of a simple little H word, hints. So your attention grabber could be about how there are always hints in someone's life, before something bad kind of starts to happen. For your attention grabber, I don't want you getting into mentioning the play Oedipus yet. I don't want you mentioning any characters. I want you to keep it very general, very, very, not vague, but kind of what is the relevance in today's world? Why does this kind of matter? I don't want you to ask a question. I don't want you to use these pronouns, I, you, me, my, we, us. I just want you to write 2 statements about the significance of hints. You can think about things that happen in everyday life as a 15, 16-year-old. You can mention stuff that kind of happens in the news. But what would be the general significance of hints? Then you get into a transition statement. A transition sentence connects what you are writing in your attention grabber back to the play. What do I have to mention in my transition statement? Author, play. So mine might be something as simple as this idea presents itself in what? Written by, who's the author? Sophocles. It's a transition sentence. I've just connected what I've written back to the play. Whose play? Sophocles' play. What's the play? Oedipus Rex. Technically, this would not be in italics. I'd be writing in regular. Although, what would I do with the name Oedipus Rex? Since it's the full name of a large work, it would go italicized like this, Oedipus Rex.
Swollen-foot king.
True.
Can we write that?
This sentence? No. Background sentences, you're going to give 2 just general statements then about the play. The play is about Thebes, Oedipus Rex is king, and you're kind of going through all the downfalls and issues that he's having. I would write your sentences first, and then the way that you are coming up with the ideas, then we can come back and take a look at complex, compound, and make it work. When you get to your thesis and your focus statement, you're just taking those sheets from the prompt. So tomorrow when we say go to your Google Doc, you already have this thing set up. You would be able to change your name. You'd be able to just put your last name up here. The header's already set to go. The page numbers will work. You also already have at the very end a works cited page. So that's taken care of, so you don't have to worry about filling that out. You're welcome. Tyler? Not yet, because we're about to do a big thing here. Go into Google Classroom. You have the Oedipus Rex essay. I want you to go to turnitin.com. So I have a link to Turnitin. If you can't locate the link again, just type in www.turnitin.com. Does anyone know if you used it last year? Okay. If you used it last year, you can still use last year, like Adrian, you could still use your username and all that stuff. Most of you are going to be going up to the top here where it says Create Account. Click on Create Account. What you would do is your email address. Use your school Gmail so that if you ever have any problems, I know exactly what your username is. So I'm going to be doing mine, Mr. Kane at students.nhsd.net. Password you create. My suggestion would be whatever you use to log on to the computer, that's what you would want to use for this, just so you can remember it. Should be, but oh well. The important part then down here at the bottom, when you create the account, make sure you click on being a student. So you are creating it. So I would use your email address, and then you are creating your own password. And you are going to be a student. So now you are coming to this create a new student account. On the back of your weekly syllabus is the number that's in bold. I don't remember what the number is. I just want to steal your sheet real quick. So you'd be typing in 186259222. Classroom enrollment key is NHSD twice in all lowercase. And then you would be doing your first name, you'd be doing your last name, display name as doesn't matter. You're putting in your email address. You're going to confirm your email address. Bless you. And then you're coming up with what you want your password to be. Apparently it has to be longer than 7 letters. Make sure you mark down that you're not a robot.
Yeah. Okay,
I can't do it.
oh, I know, this is what it's from.
What happens now is you become assigned into my class. So right now, Adrian, Tommy, Dylan, Connor, you guys are in. When it's all said and done, the reason we do this is you are not going to print out a copy of your essay. You're going to submit your essay to me digitally through turnitin.com. So to submit an essay, you need to be able to log in through here. So once you see English 10, with me, then you know that you're in and you're good to go.
Oh, I have to do a question.
So the class ID
What song did you have your first?
is that, and the enrollment key is at NHSD. Once you're able to get into Turnitin, you can close out Chrome, you can log off. And And then make sure you plug in your computer back into the appropriate number. The cords are easy to find, they'll have them there. Right place.
I am a robot.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Stud nets in your first one. I know, you're studly. But you have to be a student.
Do I need a super question? I did that.
So you did create it?
Yeah, I did in my other I'm screwed.
Okay, so alright, so you already created one. Alright. So type in your email address.
Oh my god.
And we're not using this for a little while, so we got some time to figure it out.
You didn't look like I'm a robot. What? I have to do that. Oh, it thinks I'm a robot. You got it. Your email's not typed in, stupid. Gosh darn Robocop. Gosh darn Raymond.
So what it might end up doing is then we hit
So why Brendan, please.
Alright, now, make sure we are clear. The expectation, I don't want you writing an introduction tonight. I don't want you messing with the Google Doc so far as your essay. What I do want you filling out, though, is the Google form, select the prompt, come up with your examples, locate the line numbers, all that kind of stuff.
It's not like it's just like I have to do this all over again.
I'm sorry?
You actually that's unable.
Yeah, that's where's your weekly syllabus?
Looks like late. Nate is gonna be late.
Because all that information is on the weekly syllabus. That's not the class plan. So did you pick up your weekly syllabus? Well, no, like today when you came into the room, did you pick up those two? No, thank you.
I thought you were
So you need to get those. Did it work then, or do we still need to figure it out? Okay. I don't think this one was yours.
No, it's not. I put mine in already.
So on the back of the syllabus, there's your class code. There's that enrollment. You good?
Yes.
Hey, you have my phone?
So Mark, you can do that tonight, if you want.
I'll just do it right now.
Okay.
I give up because I'm
See my phone? Can I see your phone? Or do you have my phone?
You
Oh my gosh, I'm not doing this right now.
That's sick.
I thought you do that.